How's it going, everybody? So, today we're going to cover the basic steps of how to grow a giant watermelon. Now, this is all the seeds you get in a pack. This is a standard pack of seeds that I got at a local store. I think it was a Tractor Supply store. But before I get started on this, I do want to say I'm not going to go into every single thing you can do. For example, you can take this even further. For example, you can buy online um, seeds that are actually specifically from um, world record or state record or title holder. For example, it'll be so and so won the state fair, blah blah blah, with this however many pound watermelon, and you can buy seeds directly from that, which is an even better way to start out with a seed that has a better chance genetically to give a larger variety. However, I mean a larger watermelon. But the problem with that is you can pick these seeds up at a local store for $2 or $3. For a standard home gardener, they're not going to want to go out and spend $35 or more. I mean, it can be much more than that. What I saw was $35 for 10 seeds. So this is one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. Yeah, about the same amount, about 9 seeds, whatever. So it's that's the cutoff. So if you want to go do that, if you want to spend $35 for 10 seeds, feel free, go ahead. But I'm fine with just spending the $2 or $3 for 10 seeds, basically. Um, but I'm just letting you know you can take it that one step further and get the more expensive seeds that come directly from a record breaker watermelon, let's say. And also, another thing that you can do that a lot of people do is you can graft the watermelon plant onto a more vigorous rootstock, which also can yield a larger fruit. That's another thing I'm not going to go into because it's a big, long, drawn out thing with a whole complicated process. I may go into that in the future. I may uh, go down those roads in the future in a future video. But for now, we're going to just stick with standard seeds you can get in the store on a non-grafted plant, just to keep it simple and cheap for your average home gardener. So with these, typically, I would say pick the largest one, right? And excuse my eternally dirty hands that ground in dirt from from gardening. I would usually say pick the biggest seed, but these all seem to be about the same size. So just kind of look at them real quick and say, okay, this one's the biggest or whatever. So the first thing you want to do is pick one. I think this one over here on the right is just a little bigger, so I'm going to go with that. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention. So the variety I have found through all my research, supposedly that holds all the records and is the gold standard of the one you want to start with, is called Carolina Cross or Carolina Cross number 183. That is the current world record holder, as far as I know. From what I saw, it was a guy named Chris Kent, I believe, who has a 350-pound watermelon that he grew from Carolina Cross, from what I read. If I'm wrong on any of this, or if you guys find a bigger variety, let me know. But through all my research, I've not been able to find any um, information online or anywhere else for that matter of a bigger variety or a bigger type of watermelon you can grow. So I believe this Chris Kent guy grew a 350-pound watermelon in 2013, so about 12 years ago. These on the packet say they can grow to over 200 pounds. So probably what that means is it's fairly easy to get a 200 plus pound watermelon. But if you know all the tips and tricks to maximize the size of the watermelon, then obviously you can end up with a 350-pound one. Now, he might have used a specialty seed he got from a previous title holder or whatever. And I think he did actually graft them. If I remember right, he grafted them onto like a gourd rootstock. But anyway, again, just staying with the using seeds you can get from a local store. But yeah, you want to go with Carolina Cross. Um, Pick the biggest one you can find, and then take a nail file. See if I can get this. the eternally dirty hand, ground in dirt. Now see this side right here, the pointy side? Stay away from that, but just do like, let's see, I gotta have something I can point with. And by the way, guys, don't get all grossed out. When I say eternally dirty hand, that doesn't mean I haven't washed my hands. I wash them very thoroughly. They just don't get clean. So let's see what I can do here. So this side right here, stay away from that pointy side, but start maybe like right there, just a little bit away from it, and file all the way around carefully to like there until you see on the side or on the edge right there, you'll see there's kind of a seam, kind of a line. And once you file down far enough, it will like change colors. I'll show you what I mean. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but so a little dark line starts to appear when you file down through that. And if you very, very gently take your fingernail or something and wedge it down in there, I mean, extremely gently, it'll start to separate, and you can actually separate the seed sides apart where you theoretically could stick something down into the interior of the seed. You don't want to do that, but as soon as that little line appears, you can see a couple little dark spots there, and you can get your thumbnail or whatever just enough in there to where if you pry it, you can see it start to open up. Again, don't go very deep, be very gentle, but that will allow the water to get in there, which I soak it in 1% hydrogen peroxide, which just one part of the typical 3% hydrogen peroxide. You take one part of that, 2 parts water, so then it becomes essentially 1% hydrogen peroxide. I soak it in that for a lot of different reasons. I'm not going to go into that right now. But water will work as well, just straight water, or you can add the peroxide. Soak it in that for about 24 hours. A lot of times when you do it this way, it speeds up germination so much that you will actually see it start to stick a little root tail out in that first 24 hours, sometimes even as little as just a few hours. So let me get that set up. You throw that in there. Now, just so you know, the filing of the seed is not just to satisfy, your impatience or whatever you want it to happen, the germination to happen as quickly as possible. That is part of it. But the seed only has a finite amount of energy. So the more you can do to help it, the stronger, the faster, the better, it's going to be as far as a seedling when it's starting out. Everything you can do to help it, again, not just for speed, but just for saving energy to do that initial growing process. And the same thing, sorry about the finger there, the same thing for the water and the peroxide. That's a peroxide solution right there, but it's not just to speed it along. It does speed it along. Peroxide will speed along the germination process. It will also kill any harmful pathogens. It breaks down the seed coat. It jumpstarts the chemical reaction process or whatever that's internally in the seed. There's a lot of things it does, but it all just contributes to the best and healthiest and strongest and fastest, blah, 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 seedling you can get. So anyway, this has been filed down. I didn't go all the way around just because I already could see that the inside was accessible for the water. I could see that when I tried to pry it apart, it was coming apart pretty easily. And I didn't want to take the chance of, maybe filing too much or messing something up. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to leave that one little side filed off and not mess with going all the way around. Plus, it's a little bit hard to do. And if you've already got an access point for that water, it's not necessarily something you have to do going all the way around. So this is filed. There's the water and peroxide. Throw it in there. Boom. Let that soak for 24 hours. And it does tend to float on the top and not really get all wet. So, which I know sounds silly, but it does. So I would just kind of stir it up. And this is warm water as well, which also helps. Just stir that up and it'll get get it all wet and get it to sink. A lot of times they'll sink to the bottom, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I've had ones that sink and I've had ones that float, and they both produce good seedlings. So don't think that one over the other is necessarily a sign of, oh, is there something wrong? It's going to cause a problem. But I like to get it wet and push it down in there and everything until it starts taking on that water internally. Anyway, so let that bad boy sit for 24 hours, and I'll continue where I left off after that. And by the way, I forgot to mention, on a standard nail file like this, don't use this side, use the rougher side, otherwise you'll be filing until your retirement. So let's pick this up after it's soaked for 24 hours, and then we're going to be moving it to a wet paper towel in a baggie, unless at that point it's got a significant seed tail sticking out, at which, if that is the case, it can go either way. Then we'll skip that and we'll put it directly in the soil. How's it going, everybody? So I got these out. It's been 24 hours. These other two I just put in there as an insurance policy just in case the other one didn't germinate for some reason. I didn't treat them the same way. This is the only one that I filed on the side. But you should be able to see where it's turning sort of yellowish green. There's a black line right there. It's starting to hydrate and bulge out of the shell. It's a hard seed, so it's going to take a little longer to actually come out and germinate. But anyway, so after 24 hours, put these on a wet paper towel. Make sure you wring it out, push it between your hands to get all the extra water out. You want it to be very damp, but not just soaking. So make sure there's several layers because you don't want it to dry out really easy. And just line these up, fold it over. It's also good to have these all facing the same way and a decent amount of space in between them. And when you fold it up, don't have 100 different folds. Have a thick layer of paper towels that are damp so it won't dry out really easy, and then have them spaced well and all pointing the same way. That way, when they start to germinate and pop out, you don't have the little seed tails crossing over each other and, getting all tangled up, or, getting stuck into the many folds of the paper towel. There's all kinds of goofy stuff that can happen. I've seen it happen a million times. So just make sure, thick layer of wet paper towel, damp, not soaking, all facing the same way and spaced like that, and then basically just fold it over once. So you should end up with something kind of neat and tidy like that, and then just kind of push it down to make sure it's, not real hard. Make sure it's in good contact with the seeds. And after that, throw it in your labeled baggie. Make sure it's sealed well. And you can even fold this under just as an extra little insurance policy in case you don't have it sealed perfectly. You can even have it weighted down as long as there's no weight on the actual seeds. So let's see. There you go. Now, a lot of people say if you take a straw and stick it in here and seal it up all the way up to the straw and then blow into it and inflate it as much as you can and then seal it really quick, it's kind of creates a greenhouse effect from the CO2 in your breath or whatever, or the carbon dioxide, whatever. So it kind of creates a greenhouse effect. If you have it under a light, that may or may not work. I don't know. It sounds like it may. I don't usually even mess with that or do anything like that, just because usually they germinate so fast that it's not even worth it to mess with. I'm just saying you can do it that way. These say on the packet 7 to 10 days. Usually doing it this way, I see germination, if not in the first day, then in the second or third. So it's so fast that, 1, 2, 3 days versus 7 or 10, what they say it normally takes. I usually don't even mess with it. I'm just saying, if you guys want to try that, you might have good luck with it. It's just another option. But what I usually do is just put it in there, labeled, seal it up, fold it under. I am going to put it on a heating mat. The heating mat I have is very gentle heat. It's 80 degrees. It's not super hot, but you have to be very careful. Some of those heating mats get ridiculously hot, and they'll mess up your seeds. They won't germinate or they'll die or whatever. So mine's real gentle, 80 degrees. I'm going to put it on there after I seal it up, and then we'll check it every day to see when the germination happens. There you go. It's on the heating mat, sealed up, labeled, and I guarantee probably by the time I get home from work today or maybe tomorrow, it'll be germinating. And it's amazing how fast they germinate and how fast those little seed tails grow and everything. So I'll keep you updated. All right, guys, so now on to the next step. I have some very fine potting soil. I would suggest using the best potting soil you can because this is going to be such a huge watermelon, huge plant. But I've got some nice quality, very fine potting soil that has some slow release, low level fertilizer. You don't want anything too strong in there at first. It is organic, but you can use whatever you want. You can use organic or non-organic. I would suggest at first just using like a small amount, something low like 444 or 356 or whatever. As long as the numbers are fairly close to being even and they're fairly low at first, you could use organic or non-organic. But what I used is a nice fine potting soil, or actually starting mix, and added some of the organic low-level fertilizer to it. So, and this is a 2-quart or half-gallon container, and I got it labeled there. Now look at this. If I can get a hold of it without breaking it, hold on a second. So this is after 48 hours, right? 48 hours. Look at that. How big of a root is coming out of that. I mean, after 48 hours, and that did not just form instantaneously. So chances are it actually started to come out of there and germinate within 24 to 36 hours or something like that on something that says it should take 7 to 10 days. So, I mean, that the proof's in the pudding for how well and how fast these germinate. So it's supposed to be like an inch in the soil. I made a little hole about an inch, and you'll want to face this side down, the thin side down. That's where the root comes out. Sorry, excuse me, I had that backwards. So the root tail or whatever is going to be facing down. So as this part right here comes up through the soil, this part will come up and eventually it will be facing straight up, and the seed leaves will come out, and the seed covering, seed husk or whatever, I'm sorry, I'm so tired, I'm not even thinking straight, that will break off. So let's see if I can show you how to get this down in there. Get a hold of it without breaking it, which is practically impossible. Okay, so anyway, there's the hole. Let's put it down in there like that. But it's not imperative that it has to be perfect. It'll right itself. Nature has a way of righting itself. So once it's in there about an inch, just cover it up. Okay, so once it's in there, you just very lightly cover it up. Don't firm it down. As you can see, it's been pre-moistened. But don't firm it down, because if you press down on that, it might actually break that tender little root off. So what I usually do is just put the soil basically on top of it, just set it on there, and then water it in. So this is a more gentle way to do it. Just it's covered, and water it in carefully, like that. You don't want to just flood it completely. As you can see, it's very free draining. Trust me, that's not flooding it, that's being very gentle. So all the extra water will come out. Water will come out. I can't even talk. So tired I can't even talk. But that'll drain down, and then once it's very wet and kind of evened out or smoothed out, you can very lightly take your finger and just kind of do one of those numbers very, very gently. So now we just wait. We just wait until the seedling emerges. So the reason I've chosen such a large container and also to fertilize at this early stage, even if it is a very weak fertilizer, is because this is going to be an absolute beast of a plant. To reach, where it can make 200 to 300 pound watermelons, literally, it's going to be a beast. It's going to be big. It's going to grow fast. So having that extra room to grow and a little bit of fertilizer to start out with is going to give it that good setup for living its best life, let's just say. You'll notice a lot of people say, well, you don't need fertilizer that early. Well, typically you don't when something's very small, but if, it's not going to hurt it either. In my mind, I think, why not give it some nutrition right away? Each plant is different and each plant requires different nutrients. But just as an example, if you ever notice when you get transplants, little seedlings from the store, just about all of them have those little tiny spheres in them. Those are slow release fertilizers. And you see how well those grow. They never have issues with that. They've been doing it that way for how many years now? I don't even know. So, large scale plant distribution companies, or whatever you want to call them, they use fertilizer in their young plants. So it's just a good idea to fertilize something with the proper fertilizer, something that's slow release and weak at first. Your choice whether it's organic or not, but to have a big container and have some fertilizer is going to get this huge plant off to a good start. And that pretty much concludes the first portion of this. The second portion will be the care of the actual plant as it grows, which will be a lot less tedious and probably better to watch because instead of just looking at seeds and containers and stuff and hearing all this yammering, it's going to be a much less tedious and boring process, I guess you'd say, the care of the plant. And then, of course, the last part is going to be the best part, which is the harvesting of it. And that's going to be tricky because it's either going to require some sort of equipment, unless you got several big guys to carry it or just one outrageously strong guy. Or if you don't want to use equipment, maybe you could just cut it up where it lays, wash it and cut it up where it lays, and then carry it in pieces. But it's going to be like a 3-part, I think. It's going to be the initial part that I just showed you, the seedling, doing everything for preparing the seedling, getting it off to a start. And then the second part, the care of the plant, and then the third part, harvesting. So that's kind of the plan. But this shows you, up to this point, just everything you need to do to get your plant off and running. So hope I wasn't too horrifically boring making this video. And again, I promise to keep getting better as I go along. And I'll see you in the next one.